Hey, hey, my name is Swordswords, and today we are going to be drawing When the Circus Came to Town by Stephanie Sissom. I hope you enjoy.
The tints appeared in the middle of the night without preamble. There was some heated discussion at City Hall because not even the mayor knew they were coming. They must have worked something out, though, because the Romani Circus stayed. The town wasn't big enough to support even a fair, so this was big news. That's how I found myself with my older brother Tommy and his friends that evening. It was summer, so he and all his friends were back from college for the next few months. I was just 15 then, and though we were in a small town now, my mother hailed from Boston. There was no way she'd cut me loose to run around on my own, but if she'd known how bad Tommy and his friends really were, she would have known I was much better off alone. "How much money you got?" Frankie asked, punching my shoulder. Of the three men, I hated him the most. He regularly hit, kicked, and ridiculed me while my own brother laughed about it. He was twice my size. I was a runt back then, but I dreamed of the day I could stand up to him, stand up to all of them. I gave him the 20 Mom had given me, but not the 5 I had tucked in my hat bill. If nothing else, I wanted to sneak a candy apple. It's ironic, now that I think about it. They abandoned me when we walked inside that midway. I'd never been to a circus before. There weren't many rides, but huge tents loomed everywhere. Barkers told us to come one, come all, see the magnificent beasts of the wild, or the horrifying freaks of nature. I laughed at that one. I'd ridden in with the freaks of nature. Still, I wanted to see a lion. They looked so majestic on television. Reluctantly, I parted with $2 and stepped inside. The tent smelled of sawdust, sweat, and dung, but inside were the most fantastic creatures I'd ever seen. I picked up a peanut off the ground and fed it to an elephant, then sat on a bench to await the show. The lions were my favorite part. I knew they were big, but I never expected anything that huge. I held my breath when the lion tamer stuck his head in one of the beast's mouth. Its incisors looked as long as my fingers. No way I would have ever had the guts to stick my head in there. After the show, I debated spending another $2 to watch the same show again, but I really wanted that apple. I really wanted that apple. As I made my way out to the food trailers, a girl called out to me, "Read your fortune for $1. The sight of her took my breath. For the rest of my life, I'll dream about her face. I wish that she could have seen her own fortune that night, instead of mine. She didn't deserve what happened to her. I stared at her, transfixed. Her eyes were 2 different colors. I wondered if she wore contact lenses to achieve the effect, in order to look more striking. One was icy blue and the other brown, like mine. The effect was jarring, even more so because she was lovely. Long black hair, a kind yet mischievous smile, her body adorned in gold jewelry that jingled and rang with music whenever she moved. She couldn't have been more than a year older than me, if older at all. Hormones trumped hunger, and I let her lead me into her tent. She took my palm and stretched it out in front of her. She talked for a while, giving me vague predictions. Then she gave me a long look and said, "You need to stand up for yourself more. Do not let others control your fate." I always wondered about that later, if she really saw that. It proved to be good advice. I just wish I'd heeded it. She walked me out after my reading, her hand tucked into my arm. "Well, well, what do we have here?" Frankie boomed. "The little monkey has a girlfriend." Her hand tightened on my arm before slipping away. She smiled, but not in that same kind and mischievous way as before. It didn't reach her eyes. It was guarded, a learned placation, almost obligatory. "I'm taking a break." Frankie caught her arm as she tried to walk by, and Tommy and his friends blocked her. I wanted to tell them to leave her alone, but my voice was a frog hung in my throat. "Hang on," Frankie said. "I got $1. I want my fortune told. Matter of fact," he leered at her, "what will a 10 get me?" To my horror, he grabbed her and forcefully held himself against her, disregarding when she said no. She struggled free and snarled something in blacks. Then she spat on his shoe. Frankie backhanded her and pushed her back into the tent. I turned to run and James tripped me. I went sprawling into the dust and my mouth filled with blood. James hauled me up and I heard a click as he opened the switchblade he always carried. He pressed it against my back. "One more move and I'll slice your spinal cord," he said. "Snitches end up in ditches." It only lasted a few minutes, but It seemed like an eternity. I heard her struggle at first, and then nothing. That nothing terrified me. I was crying, blood and snot choking me. People walked right on by, and no one seemed to notice something was wrong. Something was horrible. The newspaper said her father found her, naked and beaten in that tent. It was 2 days before she could even give the police a description. I was relieved when the police pulled up in front of our house. "Don't you say a word," Tommy hissed, "or I swear on my life I'll end you." I wish I could say that I spoke up, told the police everything, but I didn't. I thought her description would be enough, and then the DNA. But I misjudged small-town politics. Frankie, Tommy, and James spun some story about her coming on to them, promiscuously soliciting them for money. They said she grew angry when they didn't have enough to pay and threatened to frame them and, quote, cry rape if they didn't bring her money. They were white church-going men with good families. She was a young brown girl, barely older than myself, bowing under their weight of small-town gossip and racial stereotype. The papers ran with stories with headlines like "Gypsy Temptress" in bold letters stamped angrily across the front page. She never stood a chance, not in a town like this. The judge closed the case as quickly as it opened, and my brother and his friends all walked free. We walked outside the courthouse together. I've never felt so sick, ashamed. Tommy and his friends stood beside me in their fresh suits and ties, looking like altar boys. An old Romani woman approached. She muttered something, then made a sign in the air with her gnarled finger. Frankie stepped toward her, but James caught him by the arm. The girl sobbed against her father, her young face still swollen and discolored. She whispered something to the old woman and pointed at me. The old woman's eyes narrowed, and she made another sign. "That's enough," my father said, and led us away. The circus disappeared, and within a week, my brother and his friends were all dead. Tommy got his hand cut in the garbage disposal at his summer job. As it chewed his arm, they thought the pain was making him delusional because he was screaming about the lion's teeth. He bled out before the ambulance got there. James fell off a ladder while he was helping his father patch the roof. The fall severed his spinal cord. Frankie died the most horribly of all. He wrecked around Johnson's Bend one night and his car caught on fire. Rescuers said they'd never forget his screams. I figure he's still screaming and burning in the place he went now. I dreamed about the old woman every night. She said, "Your crime is silence. You stood quietly and let evil reign, thus sealed your fate." One morning, my tongue felt funny. When I peered in the mirror, it looked like a piece of bark was attached to it. It felt like bark, too. Dad was at work. Mom was still in her room, so I didn't bother her. She was still coming to terms with Tommy, I think, so her supervision of me had become even more strict. Knowing she was still in that strict grief made me feel worse about what I was about to do next, but I somehow knew it was my time. I slipped out quietly and went to the woods behind our house. My steps grew heavier as I walked, and I could barely drag my feet through the leaves. When I looked down, my legs no longer looked human. They were forming into a tree trunk. Roots curled from my toes and spiked into the ground. I raised my hand to feel my tongue, and my arm froze there. Bark raced down my forearm, falling in place like Legos connecting, covering what was once human. With no surprise, I saw her walk out of the woods. Sputtering and struggling to speak around the thick brambles that were quickly crawling up my throat, I choked out a hoarse apology. She forgave me before I could even finish, and it made part of me wish that the bark would consume me faster. "What's your name?" I blurted out before I had the chance to think, while I still had the chance to think. "Lumenitsa," she said, standing fully before me now. For a brief moment, I caught a flash of that same smile, her true smile, and it was almost like we were back outside that tent, before my mother was mourning, and before her grandmother was weeping. "I know it wasn't your fault," she said. I begged my Baba for mercy, but she said, "You must learn a lesson. You will be a tree until you grow and mature enough to bear fruit. When the first apple falls from your tree, you will be human again." Maybe Lumenitsa was just trying to make me feel better in what she thought were my final moments. Maybe her Baba cursed the soil at my roots. Maybe I'm not a fruit tree at all. I fear that one day, even if that accursed apple does begin to grow, a bird will pluck it from my branches before it can hit the ground. Would that count? You don't know. You don't know how lucky you are to still have a mouth, to still have teeth and a tongue and a human voice. A voice that doesn't require you to strip your body of its skin, pound it into pulp, scratch out your inner thoughts onto your own flesh and bind them in a book, in the hopes that someone may read it and come water you so that you may finally bear that single piece of fruit.
Do you want to play a game with me? I want to play a little game. If you describe your OC or favorite character down in the comments, then I will pick one of them to feature as the main character in next week's creepydrawsta. And low-key girl, I'm telling you, I do not get a lot of comments right now, so if you leave a detailed comment, I'll probably pick yours. And if you don't want to miss me drawing your character in next week's video, be sure to hit the bell icon, because even if you subscribe, YouTube won't always tell you when I post. As always, I want to thank you lovely subscribers, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye!
Tommy got his hand cut in the garage disposal. It's not a garage disposal.